General cooking tips. 1. Add a little zest. When a recipe calls for a zest of a citrus fruit, it's referring to the colorful outer part of the skin, not the inner white part, which is known as the pith. The zest contains all of the aromatic citrus oils and provides a hint of citrus tang to the recipe. A simple method of obtaining a fine zest is by rubbing the fruit against the smallest holes of a cheese grater. 2. Don't be afraid to experiment. Good cooks are never afraid to deviate from a recipe and add their own flair. Whenever you make a substitution or addition, be sure to make a note on the recipe so you remember next time whether you like the change or not. 3. Salted butter versus unsalted butter. Butter is available both with and without salt. The salt is added for extra flavor and to help preserve it so it has a longer shelf life. The problem is that sometimes the salt in butter can be more than a recipe needs. Choosing unsalted butter gives you more control over how much salt your dish contains. If you only have salted butter, the best thing to do is omit approximately 1/4 teaspoon of salt per 1/2 cup, 1 stick of butter used in the recipe. 4. Use your kitchen scissors.
Right now you probably only use your kitchen scissors for opening packaging and bags of milk.
But next time you're trimming fat from a roast, opening pitas or cutting chicken into strips, consider using your scissors. Chefs use them all the time for cutting meats and other food items. It's probably best to have a pair that are designated as food scissors only. And be sure you clean them very well after each use because they do have crevices where bacteria can hide. 5. Keep your recipes organized. Nothing is more frustrating when you're ready to start cooking than not being able to find your recipe. Keep things organized by finding a system for filing your recipes that you can keep close at hand in the kitchen. A great option is to buy one of those photo albums where you peel back a plastic sheet and underneath is a sticky surface. This makes recipes easy to find and at any time you can remove or replace them. 6. Stop foods from sticking to the pan. To keep food from sticking to the bottom of your pans, try to avoid ever putting cold foods into a hot pan. Also, don't put food into a pan that is not perfectly clean, otherwise the resulting buildup could lead to burned food. 7. Stop water from boiling over. To keep pans from boiling over when cooking, add a thin layer of butter around the rim of the pan. This works well for rice, pasta and potatoes. 8. Avoid oozing egg whites. Do your eggs ooze out some of their whites when you boil them? This is because every egg contains an air pocket at the larger, rounded end. When placed in simmering water, the air pocket expands and creates a higher atmospheric pressure within the egg than in the water. The fragile shell cracks from the built-up pressure. Avoid this problem in the future by removing eggs from the refrigerator and piercing the larger end with a pin. This will give the air a hole to escape through. 9. Cut breads and cakes perfectly every time. It may sound strange, but dental floss can be used to slice bread and cakes for a perfect slice every time. This is also the easiest way to cut a layer cake in half so you can add a filling. For perfect results, freeze the cake before cutting it. 10. Get more juice from citrus fruits. When a recipe calls for the juice of lemons, limes or oranges, make sure you get every last drop by first rolling the fruit under your palm on a hard surface. Press down as hard as you can as you roll. Then simply slice it in half and squeeze. You'll find you get significantly more juice to add lots of flavor to your dish. 11. Peel garlic easily. Peeling garlic can be frustrating unless you know this little tip that the pros use. Lay a clove flat on a hard surface and then pressing down hard on it with the flat side of a large knife. Once you've pressed hard enough, you'll hear a pop that tells you the peel has separated. Even with this trick, your fingers will undoubtedly smell like garlic. Get rid of that odor by washing them well with salt. 12. Repair cracked eggs. If you have an egg that cracks while boiling, just add a cupful of vinegar to the water and watch as the eggshell seals itself. Unfortunately though, if the whites have begun to ooze out, this trick won't work. 13. Make sure the oil is hot before frying foods. Although they're not the healthiest option, fried foods sure do taste good. The key to perfect frying is to get the oil hot before you put the food in. Not so hot that it is smoking though, be careful. If you don't get the oil hot, your food will absorb too much oil and taste greasy. To test whether the oil is hot enough for frying, throw in a drop of water or even a small piece of what you're cooking. If it bubbles rapidly, then you know it's ready. 14. Get the right temperature for deep frying. Does your oil always seem to be the wrong temperature? A simple way to find out if your oil is hot enough is to use a bread cube. If the bread browns in a minute, the oil is between 350 and 365 degrees, 40 seconds 365 and 382 degrees, 20 seconds 382 and 390 degrees. Or, if you have one, you can use a thermometer. Just be sure that it is a metal thermometer designed for deep fryers. 15. A substitution for eggs. Need an egg for a recipe but you're all out? You can substitute 2 tablespoons of real mayonnaise for a large egg in any recipe. Be sure not to use whipped salad dressing though unless you want the extra salt that it contains. Meat and poultry. 16. Choose perfect cuts of red meat. Red meat such as beef, pork and lamb should have a moist, red surface with no signs of drying or surface film. The fat should be a creamy white color and should not be dry. Look for even, well-cut meat that is free from sinew and excess fat. To store your meat, it is best to loosely wrap it on a plate and put it in the coldest part of your refrigerator so the air can circulate around it. Red meat should be either cooked or frozen within 2 to 3 days or purchase. 17. Keep the breading on meats. If a recipe calls for coating meat with breadcrumbs, refrigerate the breaded portions for an hour or even overnight before cooking. This will help the breading cling when you cook the meat instead of sticking to the bottom of the pan. Breaded meats can even be frozen and pan-fried without defrosting. Be sure to increase the cooking time slightly. 18. Freezing meat. When freezing red meat or poultry, wrap it very tightly or seal it in a plastic bag to prevent air spoilage or freezer burn. Be sure not to pile pieces on top of each other but do pack meat as flat as possible so it freezes quickly, which will ensure its texture is not spoiled. Meat should be completely thawed in the refrigerator before cooking. Never thaw poultry at room temperature or you risk salmonella contamination. 19. Stop meatloaf from sticking to the pan. Tired of meatloaf that sticks to the pan? Toss in a slice of raw bacon before adding meat to the pan, and say goodbye to the sticking. It may not be the healthiest alternative but it does work, and tastes great. 20. Make a juicer roast. To keep all of the natural juices inside your roast, sear it on all sides in a hot skillet with a little vegetable oil before putting it in the roasting pan. A few seconds per side is all it takes since the point is not to cook the meat but rather to toughen up the outside so that the juices don't flow out while it's cooking. Then be sure to use a shallow roaster to retain more of the moisture. Uncover the meat halfway through roasting in order to avoid a steamed appearance and to get the top of your roast browned. 21. Make tastier hamburgers. Homemade hamburgers are easy to make and taste far better than the store-bought variety. Make them with medium ground beef, an egg and breadcrumbs or crushed crackers. Season with your favorite seasonings or add barbecue sauce for a smoky flavor. For juicier burgers, add 1/8 cup of ice water to your beef or turkey before forming patties. 22. Choose perfect poultry. When choosing poultry, the skin should be a light creamy color and it should be moist. It should also be unbroken with no dark patches. Fresh poultry should be stored loosely covered on a plate in the refrigerator for up to 2 days. 23. Get crispier fried chicken. For crispier fried chicken, add a teaspoon of baking powder to your coating mix, then coat and fry as you normally would. Remember to make sure that the oil is very hot before adding the chicken to avoid an overpowering greasy taste. Fruits and vegetables. 24. Quick and easy corn on the cob. The simplest way to cook perfect corn on the cob is to toss an ear into the microwave for 3 minutes. Then, remove the husks, add some salt and butter and enjoy. 25. Blanching vegetables. Blanching vegetables means to boil them for 5 or 6 minutes prior to using them in a recipe. This is particularly helpful for harder vegetables such as carrots, broccoli and cauliflower that take longer to cook. Otherwise you end up with vegetables that are too crunchy. 26. Plump up limp vegetables. Give limp vegetables a second chance by soaking them in ice water to make them crisp after prolonged refrigeration. This is a great technique for lettuce and celery, which seem to go limp fastest. This trick also works for limp herbs. 27. Stir-frying vegetables. Stir-fried vegetables are a quick and easy side dish option. Or serve them over noodles or rice for a delicious meal. The secret to stir-frying is to have the pan or wok very hot and the vegetables cut into similar-sized pieces so they cook evenly. Great choices are peppers, mushrooms, onions, carrots, snow peas and beans. Avoid starchy vegetables such as potatoes and yams. Stir-fried vegetables should be flavored near the end of the cooking time for the best results. 28. Stop white vegetables from yellowing. When cooking white vegetables, use a light-colored pot and add a pinch of sugar to keep the white color and avoid yellowing. 29. Measure vegetables and fruits properly for recipes. When using a recipe that asks you to include a specified amount of a fruit or vegetable, it can be confusing sometimes to know just how much they mean. The general rule of thumb is that if the recipe states 1 cup of diced carrots, then you dice them first and then measure out 1 cup. If it calls for 1 carrot, diced, then it wants you to dice up 1 carrot. Most recipes are pretty forgiving though, so don't stress too much over getting the perfect amount. 30. Roasting vegetables. There are lots of vegetables that can be carrots, potatoes, onions, peppers and squashes. For the best results, coat the vegetables evenly in oil and add seasonings before putting them in a non-stick roasting pan. A great way to ensure they don't stick, and to make cleanup easy, is to line your pan with parchment paper. Ensure that the vegetables are evenly distributed and not overlapping one another.